I'm going to tell you a story about the guy on my shirt, Muhammad Ali. This picture was taken 54 years ago in Houston, Texas, just after he stepped outside to the bright afternoon sun when he refused to take the step forward to allow himself to be inducted into the armed forces of the United States. This was the inflection point for him as he sort of completed the transformation from sort of boastful, humorous, joking, rapping, former Olympic gold medalist, rah-rah, patriotic, pro-America. He was always carrying on about, oh, my country is the greatest, I love this country, and, here to support my country in the Olympics, and, celebrated gold medalist, of course. And then he kind of fulfilled his destiny, which is, hey, he won Olympic gold. Of course he should be a world champion. And with pretty much breathtaking ease, ended up becoming world heavyweight champ. And then just kind of beating the crap out of everybody, still making a lot of jokes and bragging about how great he was, and became a celebrity in his own way, media figure. The days before they called it media, but everybody loved the guy. He was funny, he was engaging. He didn't come across like a typical fighter. He was good with kids. He already seemed to be showing an instinct towards being charitable because he was, making good money for such a young man. But then get to about 1965, after he changed his name to Muhammad Ali, a lot of people didn't like that. Your name's Cassius. Why'd you have to go change your name? We're not so sure about black Muslims, Malcolm X, Elijah Muhammad. We don't know if we like these people you're associated with. So then that kind of impacted his popularity once he really went full bore into embracing his new religion, his new identity. And people still called him Cassius, though. A lot of people still called him. And he didn't always get upset about that. But in 1966, he got wind that he was most likely going to be drafted into the military in support of the Vietnam War. And it was explained to him way before the draft, or way before he was drafted, I should say, that he wasn't actually going to see combat. That was a 0%. Joe Louis, of course, the famous and amazing, he was a great man, Joe Louis. Joe Louis, during World War II, made appearances at military installations overseas, Army, Air Force, Navy. He made appearances, he boxed exhibitions, and he talked up the war effort, which, if we're being completely honest, with good reason, talking up the war effort. In World War II, we were literally trying to save humanity. Joe Louis ended up getting screwed by his own country and his own government. For the J. Edgar Hoovers of the world, for reasons unknown, just decided to target him. That's a separate issue. Ali did not believe that what we were doing in Vietnam was just. He didn't understand when he was told that, well, we're fighting for freedom. He found that very problematic because, as he pointed out, whose freedom are we fighting for? I've got places in my hometown that I can't get served because I'm black. Whose freedom am I fighting for? The Viet Cong never called me any names. They never tried to take away any of my freedoms. I got water fountains I'm not allowed to use. I can't go into restaurants in Louisville, Kentucky, where I grew up. I can't go into restaurants in Miami Beach, where I train. I can't drink from the same water fountains as white people. So, whose freedom am I going over there to fight for exactly? Yeah, well, you won't be fighting. No. That wasn't the point. He wasn't arguing that. He was saying, don't wave the American flag at me when we have actual real problems here. Don't wave the American flag at me. So, this was headed for a major problem. And then when his number came up, and he was going to have to either take the step to agree to military service, whatever process that was going to be as far as what was he actually going to be doing, the government did not pick a fight with him. They did try to alleviate his concerns, and they made a lot of concessions. Let the record show, and you can Google this. The famous boxing promoter Bob Arum was involved in these negotiations, and he's written books about it. The U.S. government, or if you prefer, the military-industrial complex, told young Ali, he was 24, 25 years old, he was basically grad school age with all of the success that he had. All he had to do to fulfill his obligation, his civic duty, was agree to make 6 appearances at bases overseas per year for 2 years. 6. So a total of 12. And he was going to, like Joe Louis, box exhibitions, clown around with the soldiers, be his normal jovial self, not a threatening presence, of course, and talk up the war effort and impress upon the soldiers and the people watching on TV when it would be broadcast at home how essential it was what we were doing in Vietnam, that we were fighting for freedom, not just for the South Vietnamese, but for America. And on that, he just could not, in good conscience, agree, because he didn't think that we were actually fighting for freedom, and it bothered him that so many 18, 19, 20-year-old boys were dying and coming home horribly wounded. And he just could not allow himself to be part of the propaganda machine. And they said, listen, we're not trying to fight with you, but we're going to have to go after you legally if you don't play ball. Well, what does that mean? You might spend 5 years in prison. Okay? And that's it. That's it. He refused to take the step. He was stripped of his boxing titles. He was stripped of his license, his right to earn a living. And not long after that, he was sentenced to 5 years in prison. And he had no idea if he was ever going to fight again, if he was actually going to serve that time. He didn't know anything. But he stood on principle. He stood his ground. And he said, no.